Hey everyone, I'm Sam Clark with Crimson Education. I graduated from Harvard University and now I work as Crimson's video producer. So I've traveled all over the world speaking with students at their universities, as well as speaking with a lot of high school students who are involved in the application process, as well as speaking with a lot of Crimson's own strategists and application experts themselves who work with students every day to get into their dream university. And today, we are talking about 5 Common App personal statement red flags. Let's dive in. So the Common App personal statement is one of the hardest essays to write, really. You're trying to encapsulate so much about who you are as a person in high school and communicating it to admissions officers to tell them why you're going to be a compelling member of their university community. Now there's a lot to learn about the Common App personal statement, about the approach that we take at Crimson Education with our students in terms of how we advise them to write those essays. Not all of that can be distilled into a short video, but we're going to talk about a few red flags that we tend to avoid. Red flag number 1 is using your essay as a resume or CV item lister. At the end of the day, we oftentimes get a lot of students who want to talk about some of the amazing accomplishments that they've done, the debate tournaments they've won, the math Olympiads they've competed in, organizations they've put together. All that's well and good. The issue is that we see all of that in other parts of your application, or an admissions officer sees that in other parts of your application. There's an activities list, there's supplemental essays, and more. So a big red flag and a big pitfall that students sometimes fall into is using their essay to talk about their accomplishments. That's not what the essay is there for. The personal statement essay is for them to get to know you as a person, your character, who you are, how you've grown, how you try to grow in the future, not to list off accomplishments that you've had. So that's the first thing to avoid. Don't use it as a resume. Red flag number 2 is generic quotes at the top. It's very frequent for students to want to put a Walt Whitman or an FDR or a Mahatma Gandhi quote at the top. Those are great quotes. There's a reason why they are famous big quotes, but those don't tell an admissions officer anything about who you are. So try to avoid starting your essay off with a generic quote or even with sort of a generic turn of phrase, right? Oftentimes you'll be telling a story about a moment in time that was formative to you, or about a relationship that was formative to you, a mentor that was formative to you, about a moment in your cultural upbringing. If it's super broad and could apply to anyone, then it doesn't immediately tell us about who you are, so avoid it completely. Red flag or pitfall number 3 is trying to sound too academic. Very important, and something that we tell our students all the time is that there's a difference between your Common App personal statement and your other college application essays and an essay that you would write for English class or history class or social studies. It's not an academic paper, so it doesn't need to sound like an academic paper. You don't need to have your thesaurus on hand coming up with a lot of words to make you sound eloquent or erudite, including using words perhaps like eloquent or erudite. Instead, talk how you would talk. Let us get to know you and be conversational in your tone rather than trying to sound like an academic who's already enrolled at this university. Red flag number 4 is if you are sounding different than the person represented in the rest of your application. So when admissions officers are looking at your application as a whole, they're seeing the activities that you're involved in, they're seeing the letters of recommendation that have been written about you, they're seeing supplemental essays that you're writing, your activities list, more. If those sound like a different person than who's represented in your personal statement, then you made some sort of mistake, right? The personal statement is the ultimate distillation of who you are as a character, who you are as a person, and you want that to be tonally consistent with the rest of your application. So don't write something that you think that the university wants to hear. If it's not really who you are, if it's not what you're actually spending your time doing as represented in your activities list, that kind of thing. So make sure it's tonally and thematically consistent with the rest of your application. That's number 4. And red flag number 5, which is somewhat similar to red flag number 1, is when your essay shows achievement rather than growth. So for example, if you're trying to write about a formative moment and you decide to write about, let's say, a Model UN tournament where you were victorious, that's cool, I guess. It's a cool achievement, but you can also list that in another part of your application, and it doesn't show growth. It doesn't show who you were at one time and a moment that changed you into who you are now, or your proclivity and willingness to be someone else, or to achieve more growth in the future. So we oftentimes show who we are the most when we're overcoming obstacles and growing as a result of them. And that's a perfect place for your essay to live in, is to talk about that type of moment, to talk about an obstacle you overcame, how you changed as a result of it. If you're just writing about an achievement that you had, then it doesn't do that. And it doesn't really tell us about who you are, except for an award that you won. So those are 5 Common App personal statement red flags. We have a lot of other videos coming out pretty soon about the Common App, featuring some of our brilliant strategists who work with students all over the world. So this is by no means the end all be all. So subscribe to this channel if you want to learn more about Common App tips and tricks, about lifestyles at universities all over the world. But more importantly, more impactfully, if you want to work with a Crimson expert on your essays, on making sure that you have a really specific point of view and that your voice is coming through so admissions officers really know who you are and what you'll contribute to the university experience, then click one of the links below and you can sign up with a consultation with one of Crimson's academic experts who can tell you how to get into the university of your dreams. I'm Sam Clark with Crimson Education. I'll see you next time.